The only thing that's left is the right to bargain, which is what is being taken away here, and not just in sort of, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, but it's done in a subtle way, so that the very existence of the unions is at stake, because their ability to collect dues and maintain themselves is also basically compromised in the legislation that's proposed.
That's right. That's what the unions are saying. This is union bashing. Now, this is a state issue in Wisconsin, but I guess it has repercussions all over the United States. It has would have a national
Correct.
impact. Are national politicians getting involved in this at all?
Well, not really. I think that, first of all, I think the viewers need to understand the national implications. These types of laws are being passed in several other states, Ohio, Indiana, and what they really do, all three of them, Wisconsin, Ohio, Indiana, really go at the ability of public sector unions to raise money to survive as organizations. Now, three of the largest donors to the 2008 presidential election were public sector unions. So there is an explicit desire on the part of those who don't like unions to knock these three out of the presidential box, so to speak, and eliminate them as players in the 2012 elections. And there's nobody that on either side that doesn't really understand that. Now, what's going to happen here may not happen elsewhere because we have individual state laws, but there's definitely national repercussions. The president has said, President Obama has said, that he favors collective bargaining, but there have been no national politicians that have been coming here and making speeches. This is really a much more of a up from the bottom grassroots event. I mean, 100,000 people, it's 12 degrees and it's snowing, and 100 or 110,000 people are out on the streets saying something is wrong. That is a grassroots movement. Well over 80% of them were from Wisconsin. In any of the polling we've done, any of the discussions we've done, and we've talked to hundreds and hundreds of people, both pro and con.
Okay,
and the interesting thing here is that many, many law enforcement people who supported the governor now say they don't.
Okay, sir, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks for joining us. Plenty more still to come here on Al Jazeera, including food distribution in Libya is severely disrupted by the unrest. The UN calls for urgent access to secure humanitarian supplies. And prayers and protests in Oman. Crowds called for political reform and better pay.
Welcome back. Well, across the United States, we are looking at spring, of course, and that's when we start to see the active weather come through the parts of the southeastern section of the United States. First of all, I want to show you what's happening on the satellite image. Right here is the frontal boundary. You really can't see it on the satellite, but it is beginning to develop. Now, over the next couple of days, we are going to be seeing a lot of rain come out of this frontal boundary, anywhere from Texas all the way up to parts of Georgia, even up to New York. Now, it does change once you get across the Canadian border. We're looking at some very heavy snow for Ottawa as well as Montreal. That snow could be anywhere from 200 to 300 millimeters of snow. So if you are traveling to Canada, you're going to be expecting some airport delays in that region. Out towards the west, we are looking at some snow if you're doing some late season skiing anywhere from Seattle up to Vancouver. Very nice there, but some clouds pushing into San Francisco over the weekend as well. Down towards the south, we're going to be seeing some very heavy rain showers across southern Brazil, anywhere from Rio de Janeiro over to Sao Paulo, as well as the northeastern corner of Peru. That's going to be very localized heavy rain, so that could mean flooding in that region as well. Bolivia will finally get a break from the rain. A little bit drier for La Paz, but the temperatures are only going to get up to about 13 degrees in their forecast. And very quickly over towards Europe, the rain for Italy is still going to be very intense over the next couple of days, but that should start to die down as we go into Sunday.
He's taken stolen goods and he's now dumping them onto the world without any sort of consideration for consequences.
From people making the news.
If the North will be saved a lot of trouble, I think it is important that they should come together.
To those it affects.
We do accept that there was very bad mistakes made in our banking area.
Behind the headlines.
Most South Koreans are not interested in reunification.
Is the inside story. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Welcome back. The top stories in Al Jazeera. In Libya, Colonel Gaddafi's troops have attacked areas in and around the opposition-held city of AlJazeera, just west of Tripoli. Reports say at least 30 people have died, but the area remains under rebel control. Protesters in Egypt have clashed with security forces in Alexandria after they tried to storm a state security building. Witnesses say police opened fire at the protesters, resulting in several injuries. The U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has condemned the killing of at least 6 female protesters in Côte d'Ivoire. She says incumbent President Laurent Gbagbo has shown a total disregard for human life. Libya's problems are being compounded by the supply of food. Over 90% is imported, and the ongoing conflict is impacting distribution. The World Food Programme says food is already scarce in some parts of the country. Rising global prices are adding to the concern. Tim Friend reports.
Not guns or missiles, but food. And in a protracted conflict in Libya, it could determine the outcome more crucially than any conventional weapon. Here in rebel-held AlJazeera, the baker, Agu Fakri, reveals that the use of food as a weapon by Gaddafi supporters has already begun.
Obviously, there's no stock of flour left. We had a small quantity coming from Tripoli, but it was taken back. We saw it on TV being brought as far as Sirte. We saw that the leader said the flour could come to the east, and then the flour was turned back by those highway bandits of his.
The World Food Programme is calling for urgent and safe access to Libya after a ship carrying vital food aid was unable to dock at the port city of Benghazi on the Mediterranean coast due to security concerns. The WFP has launched an emergency operation costing more than $39 million to provide much-needed food aid for Libyans inside the country and those who fled into neighbouring Tunisia and Egypt.
We were getting reports from those crossing the border into Tunisia just earlier this week about food being used as a potential weapon. We heard that some of Gaddafi's supporters were trying to deny some of the rebels food in certain areas. I mean, if they see any food trucks coming in, they may be able to stop them. And this is the last thing we want to see, of course, because food should be available to everybody.
Libya relies on food imports. A staggering 90% of all food supplies come from abroad. Many foreign workers are employed in farming and food production, but with migrants fleeing in their thousands, food supplies are suffering. But it's not only food. In 2000, more than a quarter of the population did not have access to safe drinking water. Global food prices have already reached new highs this year and could suffer the impact of further oil price spikes amid turmoil in Libya and the Middle East. Skyrocketing food prices were among the triggers for protests in Egypt and Tunisia. And once again, they're playing a central role in revolution.